What's up, everybody? Welcome back for episode 2. Today's video is a little bit shorter today, which I'll explain later. But today's guest is Steve Wright. He is a licensed mental and clinical health counselor in North Carolina and South Carolina. He's been doing this for about 6 years now. Steve loves to play golf. He used to be a pastor, which he'll share more about in today's episode, and talks about how he felt called to that and also starting his ministry in San Francisco in inner city communities. He has a couple books that I want to shout out. First being The Descent to Compassion. Second, The Heart of Mercy, Christ's Call to Love Beyond Judgment. Third, The Sacred Place, Drummer's Balance and Well-Being Guide. And then lastly, Navigating the Storm, A Guide to Conflict Resolution in Romantic Relationships. He has plenty of other books. A link to the store website will be in the description, along with his TikTok accounts, Steve Wright Counselor for the first one, and then Right Mind Golf, spelled like his last name, Steve Wright Counselor and Right Mind Golf. He has a combined 80,000 followers through both of those, so be sure to check those out. Today's episode is a little bit shorter, like I said, due to a mistake on my end where the audio and video cut off around 40 minutes. So we lost about 20 minutes. Stay tuned to the end because I will do a recap / summary of everything that was missed. So hope you guys enjoy, and I'll see you in about 40 minutes.
All right.
All right, what's today? July 1st?
We made it. July.
We made it. I'm here with Steve Wright. Steve Wright is a licensed counselor and therapist.
I am. I'm a licensed counselor in North and South Carolina, mental and clinical health.
Okay. So you just put something out on Facebook a couple weeks ago about Right Mind Golf.
Okay.
Tell us a little bit about maybe how you, let's say I'm a new patient, or I'll come and I figure out, hey, I want you to counsel me. How does that process work, or what do you go through asking some of your people?
Okay. Well, basically there's two ways to look at it, Levi. What I do is I do mental and clinical health first and foremost. Again, like I told you, I'm licensed in North Carolina, I'm licensed in South Carolina, and what I do is I do depression, anxiety, PTSD, anger management, couples therapy, etc., etc. So that's my main business. That's what I do throughout the week, and try to keep a caseload anywhere between 12 to 18 clients. And actually, this is where we come. We're sitting right here in my office. So that's one part, and I opened that practice up in 2020, when COVID hit and everything. That's when I started this particular life-shaping counseling. And so that's what I do for a living. That's what I do for passion. And then about 2 years ago, I got back into golf with some friends. I took about 14 years off from playing golf. I grew up playing golf and enjoyed it, go out, kind of a bogey golfer guy. And about 2 years plus, some friends said, hey man, you ought to get back into it. I did, started lowering my score, having a good time, exercise benefits, so I was digging it, fellowship, friendship. And so as I was out there, I started noticing that people, they were always talking about mechanics, right? You're doing this in your backswing, you're falling off the ball, you're lifting your head up, et cetera, all these things you're going to hear in the golf world. But I noticed a lot of times they would go out onto the driving range and they would be hitting it really well. Just striping it. Everything they would hit would just be, man, yeah, do that on the course. But when they got to the course, it fell apart.
Yeah.
And so it dawned on me pretty quickly that that's the nervous system. In other words, on the driving range, it didn't matter, so they're hitting good. The moment you get over a ball and people are watching and all the nuances are happening, your heart's racing, it matters. And I imagine a lot of sports people, athletic people, they go through this when they're in any competition, whether it be baseball, basketball, et cetera. And so it got me thinking, I don't know how to teach mechanics per se, but I do know how to teach nervous system reset. How to calm yourself down, how to stay calm when everything is kind of chaotic around you, and commit through that. So those are my two worlds that I deal in. Another level of that is I started thinking, what about guys in particular that like to play golf? I said, they don't necessarily like doing what we're doing. Let's say you was you were a client of mine.
Yeah.
We're sitting right here and we're talking. This is where the hard work happens, 50-minute sessions. But what if you had a passion for golf and you said, hey man, I'd like to meet you on a golf course, and while we're playing, we can be talking.
Mm-hmm.
So I do some of that too. So I do mental and clinical help on the golf course, but I also do nervous system reset. To answer your question about how you get involved in that, I would end up getting your name, your first and last name. You know, you can go to my website, lifeshapingcounseling.com, and you could send me a message there, or any of my platforms that I'm on, you can message me, and I would end up needing your first and last name, I would need your email, I would need your cell phone number, and then I'll send out the paperwork that's HIPAA compliant. You'd fill that out, we'd set up our first appointment, whether that's mental and clinical help or whether that's golf. So that's kind of what I got going on.
Well, that's pretty good. I mean, you said you have a passion for it now. I mean, you just started in 2020, but what about it that you like doing so much? Because obviously you haven't done it forever, but what all of a sudden you're like, oh, man, I like this, I want to do it. Obviously the golf, but that didn't really start up till more recent. But what got you? It's like, no, I want to do this. Was it to help people, or maybe you used to struggle with it, or what got you into doing it?
Well, first of all, I believe people are the only commodity that's going to last forever. You know, I'm a Christ follower. So I believe that we're going to last forever. You know, this life will one day be over. And so we can invest our time in a lot of stuff, businesses, family, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, line it up, it's all important. But at the end of the day, people matter. And that's what got me into it. Even though I started my business in 2020 when COVID hit, I've been in, quote, the people business for over 33 years. You know, I was a pastor for 33 years. So I've planted about 6 churches in my lifetime. I can't tell you how many thousands upon thousands of sermons that I've had the joy of preaching.
Yeah.
And so I've always liked someone who comes to me and they're, can you help me? Because I know what it's like to need help. I need help every day. I need people around me. So first and foremost, that is my passion, and that's why I do what I do. I do it because I'm a Christ follower, and I believe people matter.
Well, what got you into preaching then?
Well, that's a cool story, man.
Yeah.
It's a cool story. It's a God story, and it kind of never gets old of telling because it was at a really, really incredible time in my life. I play in a band. The band's called Dreamer.
Didn't they play up in Dallas last a year or two ago? I remember that.
Yeah, man. We played Rusty Rabbit a few times over there. But a couple of buddies, we put that band together when Levi, when we were in the 7th grade, man.
Oh my God.
And so we've never broken up as far as a band. So 40 plus years is the same guys playing in the band, and so that's a whole nother story. We do 80s rock music, and we're all believers too, but we still play that music and go out and do shows out in the public, and it's fun, and we can kind of be 18 again for a couple of hours every now and again. So what happened is it started that band, and it began to grow, and that led to a place where I finally said there's got to be more to life, you know. And I ended up reading a book in 1988, I think it was. It was called 88 Reasons Christ is Going to Come in 1988. Of course, as not a believer then, it just scared me. You know, I was like, oh wow, my life, man, is not together like I know it should be. So I ended up asking someone to take me to church. We ended up getting in church, and I remember it was a pretty boisterous church. You know, I'll just leave it at that. You know, they were excited about their faith. Let's just put it that way. It kind of freaked me out a little bit. It kind of scared me, right? And but the preacher, everything he said, and maybe you've been there in your life, but I felt like, man, he is reading.
Like he's talking right to me.
Dude.
I've been sitting in church and at Parkwood one time. I feel like Jeff is looking right at me because he'll look in the crowd. I don't know if he's looking at people or just, you know, glancing around, but I feel like he's looking me dead in the eyes and talking to me. I'm like, my God, how's he know? Yeah. But I know that feeling.
It's a cool thing, man, because, you know, now being mature in Christ, you know, it's the Holy Spirit, man. He's reading our mail. He's loving on us, you know, drawing us to the Father. And I remember sitting there, and I ended up getting angry inside, but it was a strange feeling. I left, And when I got home, I was real upset about it. And I said to myself and the other person, you know, I said, I'm never going back there again. I'm done. I'm done. And boy, the Holy Spirit worked on me. Long story short, went back there. August 24th, 1988, they gave an altar call. I answered the call, and my life radically changed. And so what happened is began to grow in my faith really, really quick, and ended up being invited to teach some Sunday school. They wanted me to share my testimony. I ended up leaving the band for a while. I kind of walked away from the band, and just kind of everything about that world just felt evil to me.
Yeah.
So I kind of abandoned it all. Now, all these years later, I'm like, I wish somebody had been mature enough to go, you don't have to give us a couple of these things up. You could mix it. But anyway, I abandoned all that, ended up feeling called to preach, and became a pastor. Went to Bible college, did that whole route, got my degrees, and began to pastor. And then that led to a call, which is a really cool story. I don't know if you want me to share that, but that's kind of how I got saved. And then I got called to preach, and there's a story about how I got called to preach. Was pretty crazy too.
Is that when you went to San Francisco or no?
Yeah, that's what led me there.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think months had went by, and people kept coming up to me randomly when they would hear me give my testimony.
Now, what year is this?
This is 1988,
Still?
89,
Okay.
90,
So it's
right in there.
About like half a year to a year after.
Yeah,
Okay.
about a year and a half, and pastor started realizing, oh, he was in a band. We ought to get him to share his testimony.
Okay.
To the youth group, and well, come share it to the church.
This rock star lifestyle.
Yeah, you know how they do,
yeah.
man. They were reeling me in, and but it was cool. I would do it, and young kids would come and give their life to Christ, and I was like, it's kind of cool. But I didn't think nothing about it. It was just I'm sharing my testimony, and then I'm going to work the next day. And people kept coming up going, you ought to be a pastor, you ought to be a pastor. And I was like, man, you're crazy.
Yeah.
That led to...
That's kind of a weird feeling also.
Yes.
When like...
Yes.
People like can encourage you in a way that you might be good at something, but you're like, nah, I'm not sure. But then also a little bit of that imposter syndrome will kick in of like, nah, I'm not who these people say I am, but also you always doubt yourself in a way too. But that's 100%. Probably something you deal with in your counseling.
Yeah.
People that I'm sure that like just can't see who they really are in a way.
Well, it's and that's what I struggled with. I mean, I love that language you're using because you do, you know, people see things in you. I mean, are they really seeing that, or is this just a cliche thing to say because I handle the crowd okay?
Are they just saying that?
But here's the way I was called. And I'll see what you think about this because it's a pretty crazy story. There was our pastor had started a revival. Now back in that day, a revival was you invite a speaker in, they're going to speak 7 nights in a row, and everybody would come out every night.
Yeah, they still have one at the Church of God in Dallas.
Okay, cool, yeah. So, and I was in Church of God.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of what you did. Well, I wanted a career change. I was doing some stuff like I was working for Sundrop, delivering drinks in the truck, and it was a cool job, I liked it. But I was interested in numbers, so I was going to Gaston College to sign up to be a CPA. I was going to get my accountant degree.
Oh, okay.
And I'm walking across the parking lot, and I feel this whisper in my spirit that says, stop. You're going to waste your time, and you're going to waste your money. Go home. That's kind of what I felt. And I was like, oh, God. So I got in my truck, drove home. A couple of weeks go by, we have this revival. We're on night number 2, night number 3. A guy named Rusty Ayers was preaching. That was his name, I remember.
It sounds familiar.
Yeah, he's kind of local around here. He's anyway. Probably about my age now. But he was a young student at East Coast Bible College, which used to be over off of Wilkinson Boulevard. But he came. He was a great speaker. And on night number 2 or 3, he stops in the middle of his sermon, like he's preaching.
Yeah.
And he stops and he just kind of is pondering. And I'm like, I'd never seen anything like this. And I'm going, what's going on? And he goes, I got to obey the Holy Spirit. He said, there's somebody in this audience tonight. Well, as soon as he said that, man, my heart starts beating. I was like, God, this can't be me. It can't be me. You know, I'm getting cold chills now. But it's like he goes, God told me to tell you, don't be a CPA, obey his call.
That's crazy.
Levi, I felt like, I can't remember clearly, but I felt like I kind of popped up out of the pew.
Yeah.
I do know I got out and I came down and I just fell in the altar and I started crying, because for me that had confirmed all these voices.
I'm sure.
Ended up giving my life to Christ in a way to say, if I'm going to be a pastor, I'll do this. My only prayer is, if you'll surround me with people older than me to pour wisdom into me. I remember that prayer. That expedited me eventually into Bible college. My church and pastor paid for all that. I got into Bible college. I went to East Coast Bible College to get a 2-year associate degree.
That's not even around anymore, is it?
No,
Okay.
It's a debunked college. And so that got me there. I started studying and started preaching some revivals myself. And then the rest of the story is kind of back to where, how did I get to San Francisco? And that's where it picks up there, if you're interested.
Yeah,
but
I want to hear it.
What are you thinking so far?
It sounds good. I mean, I've heard stories of people like that. Like this one guy, he was at something like Passion. You know what I'm talking about, or not?
Yeah, I know Passion.
They have like cross-con
the conference
Passion.
and stuff, yeah.
And I can't remember exactly. I'm going to butcher his story, but you know, they were singing, and he was sitting down, and he just had like his hands in his face, like praying, you know, thinking of like, should he go overseas or not? And this guy, random guy, never met the guy, a couple rows behind him, came up, tapped him on the shoulder. It's like, yeah, I just felt in my heart I need to come tell you to go. And he never saw the guy again, like ever again. But then right there, he's like, oh man, that's it. Like, that's my answer. To me, when if I had something like that happen to me, I probably wouldn't believe it as quick as you did. The way you're like, oh, that confirmed everything.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's just the way I am, but I'd be more like, nah, it's like, that's just weird. You know, I guess, I mean, I do believe in God, but you hear stuff like that, or other people, it's like, well, how do they know that? Like, that guy don't even know me.
Yeah.
Like, your pastor, I'm sure you've been in a couple Sundays, but how does he know you want to be a CPA? Or I mean, obviously the Holy Spirit, I guess, but
well, and that's what I contributed to. For example, I go to Bible college. I'm sitting in a class on hermeneutics, and
what is hermeneutics for the people that don't? For
well,
the people that don't
hermeneutics,
know,
you know, just a study of Scripture and those things, a study of preaching, basically.
Only for
Hermeneutics
people who
and
don't
stuff.
know.
And so I'm sitting in there, and it was a guy by the name of Dr. Vorsch. God rest his soul. He's dead and gone now to his reward, but he was just a joy to be around. But anyway, he started talking about a local pastor named Loran Livingston, who pastors the Central Church over in Charlotte, North Carolina. It was a big church way back then. It was a big church now. He was kind of our Billy Graham in the Church of God. You know, he was like he was a rock star kind of pastor. You know, all young pastors like, if I could preach like that. So we all knew his name. He says, he's a friend of mine. I led him to the Lord. I've groomed. He's going to come speak to our class. So we were pumped. So Loran shows up about a week later at our class.
My dad said that name before.
Yeah, I mean, look him up. Look up Loran Livingston Central Church. Listen to a couple of messages. You'll be blown away. Even at his age now, he's just incredible.
He's still alive?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah. Still preaches over there, and it's an incredible church. He comes, and I'm just so pumped. And I remember having a Bible. It was about that thick with all these study notes on it. He comes in and leans up against the whiteboard. He's talking to us, and he goes, how many of you are going to be preachers? You know, and a couple of people raise their hand. How many of you are going to be evangelists? And I raised my hand, and he goes, tell me, son. He said, what's an evangelist? And I went, well, you know, we go out there and preach Christ crucified and resurrected. And, you know, I gave him some kind of answer that I thought it's got to be spot on.
Yeah.
And he leans.
Oh, I killed it.
Yeah, and he leans back and he looks at my Bible and he picks it up and he goes, good gracious, son, you got more commentary than you do Bible in there. And everybody laughed, and I'm like, oh man, this ain't off to a good start, you know. And he looks at me and he says, you want me to tell you what we need in the church? He said, we need pastors to go to our inner cities in America. We need you to go to inner cities and start churches. That's where they need to be started. Well, when he said that, Levi, I never heard anything else he said the rest of the time. That hit me in the chest so hard that I went, oh my God, is God going to call me to an inner city? Like this is, I felt it heavier than I've ever felt anything in my life. Now, pause that, jump ahead about 6 months. I hadn't forgot about that. I've been praying about it.
Yeah.
Some small confirmation whispers, too long to go into. I get back, I'm in that same class, and there's a girl named Debbie Zambrano. She lives out in San Francisco. There was a college out there that closed down, and she had to come and finish her degree here in Charlotte. She's sitting in the back, and it was prayer request time. Dr. Vorst takes up a prayer request and says, we're going to pray now. Anybody got any special requests? And Debbie sat behind me, and she goes, yeah, Dr. Vorst, she said, we've been praying. My dad pastors out there, and he says, we need people to plant churches in San Francisco. Well, this time I felt like somebody hit me in the back.
Yeah.
And I went, oh my God, this is it.
Well, let me ask you this.
So that's how my confirmation came.
Were you wanting to go, or are you kind of like,
no.
Like you're feeling like this, almost like you're being told to go do this in a way.
Yeah.
Or like people saying, hey, we need this, and then you're having that feeling also. Like, are you wanting to do this, or are you like, oh no, I have this feeling I need to do it, but I don't really want to, kind of like Jonah almost.
Yeah, well, yeah, mine was a little bit of mixture of that and crazy enough, a little bit of excitement, you know, because I'm like, this radical change has already taken place in my life, which that's what Christ always does in people's lives, right? He doesn't leave them like they were. And I just remember those two confirmations coming together, and it felt like bookends. And so I'm safely in these bookends, but I'm trying to say, then what's the story?
Yeah.
What's the story that's going on? And I remember going back, and I got to contemplating it, and I ended up, you know, that was my first marriage, and I ended up going to my ex-wife, and I said, this is what's been going on. What do you think about San Francisco? And she says to me, I can think of a million other places I'd rather be, but if that's where God's calling you, we'll do this. Ended up going out there and met some folks. Long story short, ended up in San Francisco, and on April 17th, 1994, I had my first service in San Francisco. And it was all homeless and low income, and the rest is history. So I was out there about 14 years.
I'm sure you got plenty of stories. I mean, 14 years and dealing with, I've never been to San Francisco. I've been to Huntington Beach.
Yeah, I've surfed Huntington Beach.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
What's maybe like the coolest experience, or maybe like story you got to see in another person that you would like? I'm sure you got a ton, but maybe one you'd like to share with. I mean, this one person that just sticks out to you.
Wow, so many. I would say it was a guy that we called Fat Jack. You know, again, I do have 1,000 stories, because let me explain the context of my church first, so you'll know what you're up against. My church was located on Jones and Eddy Street in San Francisco, which is the Tenderloin district of San Francisco's. There's theories about how the Tenderloin came to be named the Tenderloin. Some people say cops, if they worked that beat because it was so crazy, they got a little bit a break on meat in the local area, so they could go get tenderloin for cheaper than everybody paid for it, because that's kind of, since you're down here, we're going to cut you a deal. But it's about 20 square blocks of debauchery. It's not even really, they don't even like to put it on the San Francisco maps. And so Jones and Eddy, San Francisco Chronicle once did an article, they called it Cutthroat Corner, where that's where my church was located. And alongside that, I had a building that we did networking with San Quentin Prison. They would release inmates into my care, and I would rehab them. There'd be 14 people at a time, along with a ministry partner, a friend of mine named Ron Hooks, who was the director over that. And we would use these guys as our ushers. So we had San Quentin Prison inmates that had been released, and they would become our ushers inside the church building of homeless, low income, transsexual, bisexual, gay, strippers, you name it, I had it inside my church. It was one of those churches you would hear cussing in it. You know, like you go to your church and I go to my church here, you might hear somebody go, "Hey man, pastor." I was hearing blankety blank, that was good. They'd cuss, and I go, I appreciate it. So it was just this whole different environment.
Do I say thank you or correct them?
Yeah, you didn't know what to do,
Yeah.
you know. So it just is what it is, and so I just learned to love on the homeless, and I felt like I was called to that, and it just kept growing and growing and growing, and we ended up planting a couple of more churches out there, the same kind of homeless ministry. And Fat Jack, again, I could tell 1,000 stories, but Fat Jack, his name was Jack Mulqueen's his name. He looked like a big old Santa Claus. You know, he was a big old fella, and he was an ex-Hell's Angel.
Okay.
And I remember we found him on the doorstep of our church one Sunday, and he, you know, we had to kind of kick him with our foot to wake him up, you know, and woke him up. He came into church and said, "Come on in." You know, we served food afterwards. "Come on in, man." He came in. He ended up giving his life to Christ that day. He ends up going through the rehab, graduates it, and gets licensed into church eventually, becomes a pastor himself, but he becomes a, what are they called, the motorcycle pastors, you know, where you go back into the...
I don't know what they're called, but I know what you're talking about.
Bikers for Christ, basically.
Something like that.
And so he's in that world. He hadn't seen his father in over 25 plus years, who lived in New York at the time. He eventually got restored with his dad, and he went from being on the sidewalk to ordering a limousine to take him to the airport years later to move back to New York. He died about 6 years ago, God rest his soul. But he was a joy, because he would travel with me and my ministry partner, Ron, and we would fly and speak on college campuses and Bible colleges and things like that. And Jack would always share his testimony of what Christ done in his life. So you had that kind of stuff going on in the church out there, but you also had drive-bys and shootings. I've been cut before in church. My funniest,
in church?
Yeah, man. I mean, just crazy stuff. And my funniest thing that ever happened was, that's why when I pray with my eyes open now. It's
right, for real?
Yeah, oh, for real. Like, I don't, like, as a pastor,
It's
like,
just
if you
like,
called me.
it's just like conditioned in.
Yeah. Like, if I came to your church as a guest speaker,
Yeah.
and I say, hey, let's go to the Lord in prayer. Father, in the name of Jesus, we come before you tonight.
Yeah.
I'm like this. I'm not closing, because I used to do what, you know, most people do, close their eyes in reverence, I guess, or whatever, a habit. I prayed and I opened my eyes, and there was this African-American lady, and she was standing in front of me. She had made it to the pulpit, and she grabbed my face in her hands.
So wait, when you started praying, was she like in the back, or?
Yeah, no, there was nobody there. So she must have walked up as I was praying and got right in front of my pulpit, was on the other side of my pulpit, but she was, or podium, and she grabs my face, Levi, and she grabs me and French kisses me. She runs her tongue in my mouth, gives me the little swirl around, and she has my face, and I grabbed her hands, and I went, and I kind of looked at her, and I went.
Did you like it?
And I laughed, and I laughed, and she smiled. She only had 2 teeth in her head.
Oh God! She worked
And
at
I
Waffle
go,
House?
oh my God! I go like this. I said, well, I said, that's unusual, ushers. I said, that's unusual. And she goes, Pastor Steve, I love you for what you do. And I said, I love you too, honey. Like that. And I said, and I grabbed her little hand. I walked her around the podium. I said, ushers, can we take care of her? And she walks off the stage, and I go on with my sermon, and then, you know, I go to the doctor to get checked for Hep C and all that stuff, and I was good. But stuff like that, man, you would just see crazy stuff would happen in this church. So, yeah.
Dang.
You know, and that's what this book, you know, this one right here, I was to show you, that's the story of some stuff out there.
And you wrote this book?
Yeah, The Descent to Compassion, and that's on Amazon. But I wrote that like in 2012, I think.
Okay.
But, so yeah, man, that's kind of my journey of faith, and then the final leg of it is moving back to North Carolina, which we could talk about and what happened there. But that's up to you.
Yeah, I also want to ask, like, you were out there 33 years?
No.
Or you just been doing it?
Yeah, I've been
years?
in the ministry. I'm retired from the ministry now for about 6 or 7 years, as far as pastoring the church.
Yeah.
I went into full-time mental and clinical health because I feel like that's my calling. I like being one-on-one. I've done the whole preaching crowd thing, and I felt like God released me. But I moved back in 2006, and there's a whole story behind that, which is really cool too.
Have you noticed, or what's the biggest thing maybe you noticed dealing with people out there like in San Francisco that maybe are on drugs or in gangs or just craziness.
Yeah.
Versus people that, quote unquote, have their whole life together according to the world. What have you noticed when maybe you're sharing Christ with them, how they respond versus maybe some of your friends that maybe don't struggle with those things? Like, are they more receptive maybe because they're at rock bottom of life? Or
I think that there's a lot of variables built into that. You know, for instance, in the Tenderloin of San Francisco, when you got people that are strung out, doing crack deals on the street, like it really is an inner city, it's rough. But I could walk through there because I was a pastor and they knew me and just be safe. If I took you there, it's going to be a little more treacherous because they don't know you. Know, who's this guy? They saw me, they go, that's Pastor Steve, man, leave him alone. You know, they was almost like they protected me because I was like loving on them so hard. And so I know when I loved them well, they treated me well, but they're only ones. I believe that humanity, no matter who they are, whether they come from a good home or anything, you're only one bad decision away from being homeless if you ain't careful, or being addicted if you're not careful, which could lead to that.
Right.
Because you would find someone on the street that was homeless that had been kind of born into that chaos, and their mom was homeless and their dad was homeless, and they just ended up homeless and become a lifestyle because San Francisco was built on, they would eat more than we would eat. Because churches with programs, you could eat 3, 4, 5, 6 times a day, free clothing. So they never didn't have clothing, they never didn't have food, and San Francisco would even pay them. SSI, they would pay them so much to be on the street. So you got a paycheck, and how you gonna get out of that? And so my job was to go, you don't belong here, you belong somewhere else. You got, I want to get you to Christ, get you maybe in our program, and send you off. So they were very receptive to this gospel story and this love. But here's a perfect example. You never know who you're walking by when they're a homeless person. Even here in Gastonia, right? We could walk out there and see them and go, oh man, kind of feel bad for them, but my gosh, you know, you have this indifference
I had that
built in.
same whole, I guess, realization, because me and my buddy, we were going to Food Line back in like last winter when I was up at school. I walked up and this guy was like drawing pictures and like trying to sell them to make money. And, you know, usually I don't like try and give money to homeless people or people begging, because I'm like, you never know what they're going to do with it. Like, are they going to go buy drugs or beer, or, you know, I don't want to able somebody in that. But for some reason, I'll talk to this guy, and he was just talking to us, and I was like, you need anything to drink? Or he's like, no, I'm good. He's like, I just need some money. I'm like, well, I can't give you any money. Like, I can get you any kind of food or anything in here.
Yeah.
And he was like, well, get me a Reese cup or something. So I got him one. But anyway, we had like a Bible study, like a combined mind with the other girls group that we were paired up with. I can't remember what we were talking about, but I just remember, like, it came to my mind, and I remember talking to the group. I was like, you know, usually when we see homeless people or people on the side, we don't even look at them.
Yeah.
Like, you don't even acknowledge them. And I was telling the people in the group, not that like I had it all figured out or that I don't also do the same thing. I'm probably the most guilty of it. But I was like, that person has a name. They're probably a son, a daughter, a brother, a sister.
Bravo, my friend.
But also, like, God made them
in
the same image that he made me.
Yeah.
And like, to not even acknowledge them, I don't have to give them money, but a lot of times I won't even look that other human being in the eye. Like, forget religion. Yeah. Not actually, but you know,
Levi,
like, if I'm not gonna look this person in the eye.
Let me stop you there, because just to echo back to you how wise that is, and your observation is spot on. I remember when our ministry was really transitioning into more homeless and low income, because we had moved the church down into that area, and it morphed really quick. And I was in a learning curve. I mean, I'm an expert on it now, but I wasn't then. I was just a guy that was like, okay, we're dealing with homeless now. What does that mean? And I remember one day walking down the street, and I sat down beside this guy. It was a homeless guy. And I sat down the street with him, and I said, hey, man, I'm Pastor Steve. What's your name? And he told me his name. And I said, what's it like being homeless, man? I said, what's the one thing that always stands out to you that just kind of, it makes you want to shake your head and go, gosh, that's sad? He goes, watch this. He said, I want you to watch how many people walk by us. He said, everyone that walks, see if they even look at us. And I turned and I was watching, because I'm street level now. I'm sitting on the sidewalk, leaning up against the building. I'm sitting there. Nobody. There must have been 20 people that come by. And then he taps me. He goes, "You see?" He said, "We're not seen." That changed me that day. That's what, when I tell people homeless taught me more about God than I ever taught them, I really mean it. Because it was like, we're afraid to look down for a plethora of reasons, but it's not until we look down that we really see that people matter and people count. We're used to just eye-to-eye contact, and we go, "I got trouble, you got trouble. I hope you're going to make it through yours. I do too, buddy. High five." But even the ones that are standing are just as broken as the ones that are sitting on the street.
Right.
Because you never know who you're going to pass. Like I said, there was a guy, his name was Dennis, and come across him. He was homeless. Ended up getting him into the rehab. He ended up stealing a bunch of stuff from us and left. Found him behind a dumpster again. Rehabbed him the second time, stole some stuff. Rehabbed him the third time. He went through our program 3 times. Now, this guy was a dentist out of LA who had a practice down there and had a professional disability salary on the street of San Francisco of about $2,500 a month. But you didn't know you were looking at a dentist that had went to a party one night in LA, took his first hit of crack, and it took everything, destroyed his marriage in less than 6 months, and he ended up on the street of San Francisco. You just saw this body of chaos. So that's why I just tell people, you don't know who you're walking by. Yeah. All the way from a dentist that's a professional to someone that was born into it. At the end of the day, we're all the same, and that's what that story entails, right? Because I remember leaving San Francisco, when you leave on a plane and it makes this huge turn to go back toward the East Coast. Back. You're like coming back when I would travel back to see family. And I think it's in the book. I talk about how when you get up in the air and you look down at the city of San Francisco, it's beautiful. It's Mediterranean, it looks. And God whispered to me one time, he says, I said, "This is beautiful." I remember saying something like that in my spirit. And I felt like God said, "Well, everything looks like that from a distance. It's not until you get up close do you find out that it's chaos." And I think that's what we're missing in Christianity, the closeness. We gather for church and hear a good sermon, but we never do life with, and I'll be straight up with you, we don't do life with sinners anymore. We're looking for cliques. I'm just not that guy. We're looking for Christian cliques. And I'm over that. I think they have their place and time, but I'd much rather see a strong believer hang out with those that don't know Christ and be okay in the uncomfortableness of what that is in the mess.
Well, I think that's just discipleship in a nutshell. I mean, obviously, discipleship can be between a Christian and another Christian, but also making disciples, a Christian and non-Christian. But yeah, I mean, I think we need to bring back, church on Wednesday nights and all that. I mean, like food, like the food, that brings people together.
Yeah, it does.
I mean, dinner on Wednesday nights, what I mean, but stuff like that. I mean, I think they used to do a bunch of like outreach stuff, but you don't really see that much anymore. It's like outreach. I guess they're just trying to do online stuff. Most
well,
churches,
they do that, and they do it in the parking lots and stuff. And I call that planned benevolence versus spontaneous everyday benevolence. I don't pit them really against each other. They're just two different models, and you can actually do both, and I think both can bring a balance of healthiness. Kind of like what you're saying. We need fellowship of Christians to come together and have food together and do those things and have some programs, but at the same time, making disciples that make disciples that are not afraid to walk into the proverbial bar and sit down and talk with somebody.
Well,
I play in a rock band, and we still from time to time play in bars. You know how many people I've led to the Lord sitting in a bar? Tons.
Yeah.
But I have Christian friends that'll look at me and go, "You can't go here, you can't go there, you can't go there." Now, that can be wise if you got big time problems with that kind of stuff. I ain't advocating for that. But if you're squared away in your faith, you ought to be able to walk into the lion's mouth, so to speak.
Yeah.
That's just my opinion now.
No,
I don't mean people have to buy that.
I just think, I agree with all of that. I just think not everybody is really mindful of that all the time. I would assume, which I assume is not the best thing to do, but most people don't go throughout their day all the time thinking, okay, how can I maybe share the gospel with someone that doesn't know,
Yes.
or impact someone else. Maybe they have a bunch of Christian friends, or how can I reach this person? Maybe they do, but
Yeah. But,
and just
but,
also
but what
that,
if you took a more patient approach to that with familiarity?
that's what I was
built
about
in?
to say. Discipleship is a lot longer process.
Yeah, but here's what I'm saying. Watch this. All right, let's say, what's one of your favorite restaurants you like to go to?
People's gonna give me a hard time for this, but I like going to Peter Will in Dallas. It's
All right, Peter Will.
consistent. It's good.
I love
like
Peter
it.
Will. I love it. Sits on the corner there. It's awesome.
Yeah.
I knew them when they were a food truck and all that.
Yeah.
All right, so Peter Will. What's the name of one of the waitresses there?
I have no idea.
Well, there you go, and that's my point.
What's up, guys? Hope you enjoyed that episode. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was going great until I found out I was cutting off. But anyway, Steve and I continue to talk about what he believes that the church needs more of, which he was talking about spontaneous benevolence. And benevolence just means an act of kindness, or pretty much to do good. So he was saying, like, we need more of just, spontaneous acts of kindness, and just throughout our daily life, and saying how the church has this planned benevolence of, like, maybe doing stuff with the homeless, but the capital C, big church, the believers, we do more of, like, doing life with sinners in a way of, like, hey, maybe going into a bar and, sharing the gospel with somebody, or, a lot of people might shy away from that, or to quote him, he's like, to go into the fire. I wish we could have also had this on today's episode, but we talked about his life after coming home from San Francisco, and what that transition was like, and with his family and everything, and then starting up the counseling business in 2020. Then at the end, I asked him, the same as I asked Billy, what would be his advice to his 21-year-old self, because I'm also 21. And he gave me 3 things. He said, first, obviously, keep your faith, keep God first and foremost, most important. Secondly, he said, finances, keep your finances in order. He said, if I could go back and talk to my 21-year-old self, I would tell him to start investing, even just $100 a month. He said, because at 20, that'll build up over time. He's like, I wouldn't even have to do this business. I could be retired, living my dream. He said, even if someone at 60 starts investing, or 55, they may can only get up to, like, 80,000 or something like that. But he said he would start investing young, start investing now, even just like an ETF, where you don't even have to look at it. Just start putting it in there. And it kind of leads into his third thing. He said to live your dream, like, go do it. He said, he kind of sounds cliche, but he just means, like, don't wait to do it. Like, you could look at someone who is doing something, man, I wish I could do that, or wish I could do this. He said, just start, and you'll learn and you'll fail, and that's part of it. But he said, just start. And so he said, keep God first, finances, investing, and just chase after that dream. But thanks, guys, for listening, and hopefully this does not happen again.